basically what the problem is that the person that you want to sell, just by the nature of who they are, basically don't want to be pen pushers, form fillers. So you want them to go out there and start selling stuff, but you're basically hiring somebody with that kind of personality characteristic, which is 180 degrees opposite from people who will fill in forms and give you your updates. So this is an age-old problem that we've had, which is business owners like left out on an island, not having enough information. So let me just show you. We did this. I've been playing with Gemini to try and create a little bit of videos. So let me play this and see if this works. Get the point across better than I can. Player. Okay.
There's no audio if that matters.
You're kidding me. God, isn't that always the way? I think we're going to have that issue too as well with when I try to use the audio when we go through some of the examples. But I kind of sort of got around it because I use Whisper and I basically recorded something, so we'll be able to show that. Thanks for that, Brian. Yeah, I will post that tomorrow. So basically what the problem is the, oh, I think I have another slide which kind of shows it too as well. So this is the problem. So it's 2 weeks before the end of the quarter, and you know where your sales are at. So we have our little business owner here who's sitting out on an island. I literally heard a business owner say that one day. It always made me laugh. I'm out here on an island. And they don't know what's going on with their salespeople because their salespeople are doing what they're trying to do. They're trying to close as much as they can before the end of the quarter. They're not interested in getting all the information in there. So it's very hard to plan for the next quarter if you have no idea what's going on. So this is the situation we're in. So my question to myself was, why fight it? Why can't I just make it easier? So that's what we're really going to talk about tonight. We're going to basically figure out how to create a voice interface for the salespeople to be able to call, for want of a better word, a version of Siri, to be able to have a conversation, to be able to update the CRM and get the business owner the information they need without, you know, too much of an effort. Okay, so agenda. So we're up to 610 members, which is great. This month, I'm going to talk about the CRM integration, and then next month, what I want to do is, you know, basically I have two audiences. I have the audience when we're doing this live, so people join, people look at the live stream, people look at the live stream on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And then the videos are still out there. So the videos are out there. They get probably as many views as I do people coming to the meetups, sometimes a lot more depending on what it is. But it's a different audience. The YouTube audience are way more critical than people on the meetup because it's, you know, we're having more of a conversation. You know, you guys are helping me when stuff goes bad. Sometimes the demos don't even work because the demo gods are not always favorable. So what I've thought of is it should be really easy to re-record some of the videos. So that's what we're going to do next month. So I'm going to take one of the videos. Somebody was complaining there's too many ums and ahs. I'm going to take the information and basically use the transcript that's on YouTube. There's a Python library where you can download the transcript and get OpenAI to condense the information and basically have a clean, you know, edited version of the content that we do during the meetup, just so that we get more viewers. You know, we're fighting against a lot of stuff at the moment. We're fighting against a lot of, what's the word, AI slop at the moment. So I want to see if we can counteract that by having really good content on YouTube. So, and I'm sure that you guys want that too. Okay, classic problem, like we said, 2 weeks, well, it's not even 2 weeks now, it's a couple of days before the end of the quarter. Boss doesn't know if you're anywhere near your quota or not. Okay, I'm going to look at the Zoho CRM. All CRMs kind of work the same. Essentially, what you have is you have an account. So in this example here, the account is Ford. I'm just completely made up. I have this account for Ford, and we have what they call here a deal, but what a lot of the other CRMs call opportunities. So you have an opportunity, which is in this case is a C# developer. Show you what it actually looks like in real life. So we have this, we have accounts. There's not much in here. As I said, I'm going to migrate all of this over to from the current CRM I have. I'm moving it all over here. So we have this deal, which is a C# developer for 6 months at $100 an hour. So basically, the deal should be 100,000. So that's one of the deals that my salesperson is chasing. And the stages, you have a bunch of different stages here. So basically they're all different. You can change it as well, but essentially what you have is you get a lead, and then the lead turns into an opportunity. So you qualify the opportunity. You basically send a proposal, negotiate the price, and then it's closed won or closed lost. Basically, that's what you're looking for. So what everybody's looking for is how many of these are in the negotiation stage or in the closed won stage, so you can figure out exactly how many people you're going to need next month when it goes into July, or how much trouble you're in, or how much celebration you're going to do. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Zoho. We have this workflow. So the first thing that we have to do is to authenticate with Zoho. Zoho uses OAuth, as in almost everything that I've looked at recently uses OAuth or OAuth 2. So we'll walk through how to do that. I did something slightly different this month where I didn't write any code, so to speak. ChatGPT more or less wrote all the code. I just had to do a bit of tweaking. So I have saved the ChatGPT chat that I had, and I've shared it in the resources. It's at the end. So I can, we'll just look at how I did that. So to show you how easy it is if you want to do it yourselves. I did have to use Postman because it wasn't very clear exactly how the OAuth was working with Zoho, but that was more, I don't know, dumbness on my part than anything to do with Zoho. Zoho is actually really well documented, which is great. If it's well documented, that means that ChatGPT can read it. That means that it's going to be able to write the code for you. Second thing we're going to do is we're going to update it from the command line. So we're going to mark that opportunity that had as closed. So we're just going to ask ChatGPT to write the code for us. So then we have a function which will basically log in, and then after it logs in, we're going to get it to just change the stage from proposal to closed won. So it goes from 75% to 100%. And then we're going to take it, once we have a working command line in Python, we're going to create an agent. There's going to be 3 agents. We did agents for the last couple of months. So if you're not used to how to use agents, then you should probably go back and look at the last few months meetups. So we have a Zoho agent is the main one. So that's basically is going to call it's going to use the LLM to call the function that we created in the command line updates. And then we're going to have a coaching one, which is just, it's going to be sales coaching. And then we have a triage agent. So the triage agent is basically the handoff agent. So it says, okay, if this is a coaching question, then we're going to hand it off to the coaching agent. And if it's going to be a question about updating a status or updating a deal or creating a new deal, then we're going to use the Zoho agent. And then finally, what I wanted to do was to do the voice integration. So, and I'm not 100% sure that it's going to work on the meetup, but when I re-record, it's going to work. But likewise, as always, I have given you all the code. So if you want to try this yourself, if you use Zoho, you should be able to work through it. And I have a couple of different examples for the last bit. And I also used Whisper, which is the old version of what you used for voice interaction with ChatGPT. Now, if you're using agents, you use the voice agents. So we're not using Whisper anymore. But because I knew that there was going to be an issue with the mic that I'm using to do the meetup, it was going to be a problem if I was going to do the talking to the CRM. The two of them are just not compatible. Okay. All right. So Zoho authentication, the first thing that we need to start off with. So like almost everything else, it uses OAuth. So we need to go to the Zoho API console and create ourselves a self client. So there's lots of different clients. You could have a HTTP client. You could have an iOS and an Android client. But all we want is we want a headless thing called self client. And then once we create the self client, we get a client ID and a client secret. So this is typically the way it works. You get a client ID, a client secret. You generate your authorization code. And then once you have the authorization code, you write some code to get an access token, and the access token is what you use to talk to Zoho. So when we write our command line interfaces, we're going to be using the access token. These don't last very long. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate one from scratch. Make sure I'm doing the one. So what I've done in the code is tell you all the different steps that we need to go through. So if we're going to our API console, so we want to generate a authorization code for 10 minutes. It's going to ask you what scope. So basically the scope is what different modules. So we talked about accounts, we talked about leads, we talked about deals. Each of those is a different module, and you have lots of different modules across the top of your Zoho. But basically, we just want access to everything. We want to do it for 10 minutes. And we're just going to say test one. It is going to, let me just make sure you've seen this. It's going to say, okay, verify by security key. That's just the way that I've set it up. So I have a little Ubico key. So we do create, connect to the CRM. Typically you have a production and a developer. I just have a production, and I'll have my authorization code. Okay, so I'm going to go in here in my environments, and I'm going to change my authorization code. I wouldn't worry about this too much because this is still a toy system to me. The other thing I want to show you then is the client ID and the client secret. So here we have the client ID and client secret. So that's going to go into your environment variables. I did spend quite some time trying to figure out exactly what I needed. I will say that Zoho has excellent information. In fact, it's kind of one of those things where it's just drinking from a fire hose. I found it much easier to make sure that I had all the correct environment variables. So you have client ID, client secret. We talked about that. Redirect. So where you're gonna, because it's OAuth, it's going to do a callback. And then we need the code and which is the authorization code, which we just generated, and then the grant type. Okay, so then the next thing that I did essentially was I said, give me some Python code for creating an OAuth token for Zoho CRM if I have a client ID and client secret with the typo, of course. So it basically walks me through what I need to do for my code. And so I'm basically just going to run that code now. So step one, just to show you here, by the way, before we go, that I did actually get it. I was able to talk to it, and it did use the voice agent. Frankly, I think we're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to hear it. It won't be able to hear me, but just to prove that I actually did it. Okay, so we're going to do step one first. So in my README, step one is authenticating with Zoho, so I can get my access code to use in step two. Okay, so now I have my access code. So I want to make sure I put that in my environment. This one I have set up for, it's going to last for an hour, so it should be plenty of time for what we're doing today. Okay, the refresh token, basically what that does is that you pass it a refresh token and it gives you another access token before the hour is up. But I haven't written any code for that because frankly, I just don't need it at the moment. All right, let's go back to where we were. Okay, so give me some Python code for creating an OAuth token for Zoho CRM. So I got my access token. We use Postman. OAuth is can be very painful. So I always find that Postman is by far the best way to do this, because you will have, depending on what you're doing, all you have to do is search for whatever the the tool is. You just search for it. You're going to find that there's going to be something that you can fork, so you can start playing with yourself. You create an environment, you add your keys like we did in Python, and you just get it to run within Postman. And once you can get it run within Postman, it's really easy to make sure that you can do the same thing within Python. So you create your .env file with what finally worked when you did Postman. So so now what we're going to do is we're going to, from the command line, we're going to mark the opportunity as closed. We're going to ask it to write some Python code to basically just change that forward thing C# developer to closed one. Ever hopeful. Client ID, client secret. We saw that in the self client authorization code. That's what we generated in the API console. The redirect URI, which is basically what OAuth uses to call back. In this case, it doesn't really make any sense because it's a self client. There is nothing to call back, but you just want to make sure that you're passing in the right one. What accounts you're using. We're using v2 of OAuth, so it's OAuth 2. We're using zohoapis.com. If you are in Europe, that's EU, and there are other versions too as well. Expiry time is 3600. And then when I get back my access token, I want to make sure that I have it in here. And then I do have an API key in here too as well, which is changed since we use this. Okay, so I want to update the opportunity. I want to locate the opportunity by ID. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is say, can you find C# developer deal under the account forward? And then once we found that ID, we're going to say, please update the stage of this ID to closed one. Like I said, absolutely Zoho CRM, tons of information here if you really want to get in there. If you want to do what I was basically thinking of just doing basic CRUD tasks, so create, read, update, delete. But there's, no matter what you want to do, it'll give you all the notes that are in your opportunities or your accounts, all the phone calls that you did if you've linked it up. So there's lots and lots of information. So as I'm inherently lazy, what I want to do is ask ChatGPT to write the code. So now I have my access token, write me some code to find the deal called C# developer forward account. So it writes the code. And then change the code so it changes the stage of the deal to closed one. So let's have a look at that real quick. Make sure you have all the right ones. So step 2 is find the C# developer opportunity at code. At forward. Okay, so it's found it. It's found the deal. Now I want to do is run step 3. Let's have a look at the code. The code is pretty goddamn awful, but I'm of the belief that if it writes code that works, that's great. If it doesn't, basically what I do is I open the chat in GitHub and I just basically ask it to change different things. This didn't work, please fix it for me. And that's usually how I hack my way through getting the code to work. So in this case, it's going to get the account for ID, find the deal by name and account ID, and then we're going to update the deal stage. So this is how we call it. When you saw the API domain is in the environment folder. So, and then the main logic is basically passing this in. So this is all hard coded. So obviously this isn't great, but certainly just to make sure that everything works, it's all that we need to get past this stage. Okay, so it updated it. So just make sure that it actually updated in the real world. And it's closed one. Okay, cool. So now I'm doing it programmatically. So I'm just going to change it back again to what it was before. Do I have to save? I don't think I do. Yeah. Okay, let's refresh, make sure I have it, because I need to make sure I can change it again. Okay, very cool. Okay, so now we've got the authentication working. We've got it working from Python, but we want to create an agent so that we can basically tell it in English what we want to do. We don't want to have to be passing in the name of the account plus the deal plus the whatever stage we want. We want it to be much more natural language. So we're going to do this using agents. And we are going to have, following exactly what we did last month, excuse me. So last month we did a travel agent, maybe it's the month before. So what we have was a car hire agent and an airline agent. So one was going to, I just realized that's the wrong way around. Oh, how funny. But one was going to book the flight for us, and then the other one was going to book the car rental for us. And then each of those have a tool, so get car hire, get flight. And then we have a triage agent, which is basically the handoff agent, which says, hey, if this is airplane information, go to the airline agent. And if it is car hire, go to the car hire. So it calls the get car hire. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to be calling our Python code via our own agents. First thing I want to do is the code that I had was procedural, so it wasn't even a function. So I went back into GitHub Copilot and said, could you please change the code so I can call the file as a function, passing in the account name, the deal name, and the deal stage, because they're the three things that I need. So let GitHub Copilot do the grunt work, and then cut and paste this into our new file, and the new function, GitHub Copilot called it process deal stage. I did a little bit more work on the agents themselves. Salespeople need a lot of love and attention, so I wanted to give it a sales coach. So you are a specialist. This is the one in the middle, specialist AI agent for sales coaching. Focus on refining messaging, objection handling, and closing techniques. So, sales is a pretty hard job. You're basically dealing with rejection all the time. Takes a certain thick skin to be able to do that. So maybe what we'll do is help some of our agents get to the stage where they can figure out more efficient ways of doing what they're doing, not get as much rejection, and get more of the endorphin highs. And one of the things that we would do is use salescoach.com, and we're using the web search tool. So if it asks a question about how am I going to get from this stage to that stage, our sales coach is going to be able to get them where they need to get to, or come up with some strategies for what they need to do to be more successful. I'm not particularly interested in that at the moment. What I'm more interested in is my CRM agent. So this is a specialist agent for creating, reading, updating, deleting accounts and deals in Zoho CRM. I'll give it instructions like a prompt. You are integrated with CRM system, retrieve the account name, and deal stage from the conversation and pass it to the tool. And the tool is the process deal stage, which we just created from the command line. So now we've got that as a function, and we have our CRM agent, which is basically going to tell whatever we put in our, we're going to do a text first, but if we do it from voice or from an MP3, it's going to take what we said and it's going to turn it into account name, and deal stage. So when we pass it to process deal stage, it's going to understand what it needs to do and make the right change. Okay, we also have a triage agent, because the triage agent is basically the handoff between the CRM agent and the sales coach agent. So it should be able to tell from whatever text it receives, whether that's originally via an MP3 or a voice agent, where it needs to go. And in our case, it needs to always go to our process deal stage and our CRM agent. Okay, so what I want to do now is, so this is not using voice yet. So if we go back to our step 4, create a function to do the same. So in step 4, what I basically did, oh no, we have everything in step 4. So in step 4, we have our function, which is process deal stage, which calls the other things. We have our OpenAI key, and we have our sales agent, our sales coach agent, or CRM agent, and our triage agent. And I am saying from the command line, hi, can you update the deal stage for the deal name C# developer under the account name 4 to closed 1. So let me run that. Hopefully I haven't messed up anything here. Gonna take a few seconds. The agent always takes a little bit. So my debug statement is saying, yeah, it's got the right information. So it is calling deal stage for C# developer under count 4 to close 1. If we go back to the code, to our Zoho, if I refresh it, fingers crossed, it's closed 1. So I'm going to change it back again. Okay, so now we have an agent which is able to basically change the stage. It hasn't done anything else. There will be another version of this at some stage. There are several MCPs. We did MCPs, which is the Model Context Protocol. So there are several MCP clients which will talk to Zoho. So the next stage that what I want to do to use this in my own office is to connect this to an MCP client, which talks to the Zoho server. And when I do that, which will probably be in the next week, I will release the code for that too as well. It's somebody else's code anyway. Okay, so that will be some future efforts that we're going to do. Okay, so great, do this. We run the code, shows the updated stage, and I changed it back again. Okay, so finally, we want to connect to the OpenAI voice agent. And we looked at agents for a few meetups now. So typically they have the format that I just showed with the. I try to keep them as simple as possible. We had multiple agents, car hire, hotel, TripAdvisor, all this stuff that was going on. And then there's a triage, which basically sends it to the right places. We could put guardrails on it as well, just to make sure that it doesn't spend too much money, or maybe doesn't update a deal that belongs to a different salesperson. We have to put some restrictions around what we're trying to do. But we never looked at the voice agents, and the voice agents I think are super cool. So instead of you doing everything by text, you basically talk to whatever the interface is. There is a cookbook on how to set up voice agents. The link is in the resources. I thought it was a bit more complicated than it needed to be. But essentially what it's doing is we have some input audio here. It converts it to speech to text. Then there's the triage agent, which we talked about. This, in the example in the handbook, we have a search agent, a knowledge agent, an account agent. It's nothing to do with CRMs. And then whatever comes back from the LLM, it changes back to speech, and then the LLM basically outputs the audio. So the voice agent takes part of the front and the rear of what we're trying to do. The cookbook seemed quite complicated. However, there was a really simple example of doing a voice agent in the documentation, which I've also got on the resources, which I completely stole for what we're doing tonight. So I had a feeling from previous meetups that we've done is that the demo wasn't going to work, because I'm using the connection to the microphone for the meetup, whereas if we try to run it with the voice agent, it wants to gain access to that channel. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. I'll try it, but I don't think it's going to work. So my way around that was to use Whisper. So Whisper is the speech to text, the text to speech and speech to text engine that's been around for a couple of years now. Used to be a library that was that you would download, like pip install Whisper. That changed pretty shortly after ChatGPT 4.x came out, and it's now part of the OpenAI suite. So basically, you're calling it by an API. You're not calling it from the library of your phone or on your laptop. But what I wanted to do is just give it basically something that I recorded. So I'm doing a lot of work lately in 11 Labs. We did talk a little bit earlier about using 11 Labs to smarten up some of the meetups. That's going to be next month's meetup. And what I wanted to do is just to introduce you to 11 Labs. So I could use OpenAI to create this using Whisper. So basically what I would do is say, OpenAI, can you do this for me? But I like 11 Labs because you can give it your own voice, which I think is super cool. As yet, you can't do that with OpenAI. It's a choice of half a dozen or a dozen different voices, kind of different races, different genders, quite mid-Atlantic, and I just wanted to use a different voice. So 11 Labs gives you access to way more voices. So within 11 Labs, when you set up your account, I just gave it the text the same as what was in step.4 and asked it to create a file for me. So it has a sales file. And then what we're doing is we're using OpenAI Whisper to take the sales file, that sales.mp3 that I just created using 11 Labs. And then I'm getting Whisper to transcribe that into text, and you do response.text, and it will basically put that back into your pipeline. And then away you go. It will update it the same way as we did from the command line and the agents in step.4. One of the things that always strikes me as quite humorous is that if you're trying to generate OpenAI code from ChatGPT, you are going to fail, because the code that it's been trained on are previous versions of ChatGPT. So it will give you the completely wrong API call here. So just make sure that you look up what the latest version of the API is and just change it, and then it'll work for you. But doesn't seem to do that for anything else. Almost everything else is up to date, but for whatever reason, the APIs the OpenAI APIs that are trained on are old versions, so the code that it generates never works, including with GitHub. Okay, so let me go and look at my step 5. So in step 5, what I've done here is I have changed the code, so it's using Whisper. We have a sales.mp3. I'm sure this is not going to work. We'll try it. So basically, that's just the same text that I just showed. Yeah, I didn't think you would, because it's holding on to it. Okay, so let me just run this just to make sure, to show you that it's actually working. So it's transcribing the audio from sales. The query is, hi, can you update the deal stage? And then it's changing it to deal 1. Okay. So there's one final thing that we want to do. So yet again, I want to change this back. Okay, so this is the cookbook, building a voice agent with Agents SDK. Don't really recommend that. There's a quick start, which is way better for what we're actually trying to do. In this case, it's got a Spanish agent and get weather. So basically, you can ask it for the weather, or you can ask it for something in Spanish. It walks you through setting up the pipeline. For the voice agents, the main thing that we need to do is to do a pip install OpenAI voice agents. All of the code that I have has a requirements.txt. So if you run pip install -r requirements.txt, you should get everything in here. And then this is kind of the important code at the bottom. So we have async, because it's going to run asynchronously. We have a voice pipeline using the single agent voice workflow. You can have multi-agent voice workflows, but like I said, I'm trying to keep it simple. It opens up a buffer. It has a sound device, so it's listening to whatever is coming in on the microphone, and it's basically going to stream that data to your agent, and then your agent is going to take that information and either hand it off to the Spanish agent, or if you ask it the weather, it's going to call the same thing. So what I did was basically take that code. I started with because I got the code to work with I have main.py and util.py. So this is from the documentation that I just showed you. If you run it and say, tell me a joke, it'll tell you, you tell it, but using your voice, tell me a joke, it'll basically give you audio output for whatever the joke is from ChatGPT. They're all dad jokes. They're absolutely terrible. So LLMs are not going to take over the world because they can't even tell a decent joke. Okay, so basically what I did is I hacked this, put in the functions that I had that we used previously from the command line, and then The slightly different in this case, where I only have the CRM agent. I didn't put in the sales coach, but we can put that too as well. So it is, the instructions I gave it, you were speaking to a human, so be polite and concise. If the user talks about updating a sales deal, hand off to the CRM agent. So that's basically the stuff I'm giving it. It's going to call its process deal stage. It's going to take whatever you give it in text, in voice, convert it into the parameters that process deal stage needs to run, and it will update the code. Okay, I'm not going to run that now. What I will do is do a video and post the video for showing that working later, because it's just not going to work on what we have today. Okay, almost there. So this is the code that I was showing. This is literally taken directly from the documentation, not from the cookbook. So we're creating a workflow, a pipeline workflow, a single agent voice workflow. We are setting up our pipeline to listen to the audio input. It's going to take the audio input, it's going to pass it to the LLM, and the workflow is going to give you back the answer that the LLM delivers. And it works pretty cool. So future work, we're going to make the function talk to an MCP to get more functionality. At the moment, I'm just doing U of the CRUD. So I want to make sure that I've got everything that you can do in Zoho and add that as an MCP client so that we can create a much more useful application for the salespeople. And then the last thing that I wanted to show were the different resources. So we have the ChatGPT. So that's all of the calls, the prompts that I asked ChatGPT to create the code that I showed you tonight, other than the GitHub changes. API console, if you want to create your own self-client, postman.com, where you basically go and ask it for the, give me the Zoho APIs. It will search for you. You can fork it, and then you can do whatever you like. Here is the documentation for getting records from Zoho. This is the cookbook example, which if you get past the quick start, then the cookbook examples will be the next stage. And then all of the code that I have shown tonight is in here. So walking you through front-ended with the voice agent, using the voice agent, so the README is better here than what I have in my local folder. Okay, so next month we'll look a lot more at 11 Labs, as I'm going to re-record one of the earlier meetups. I'm going to take one of the ones that people were complaining that too many ums and ahs, dropped voices, pregnant pauses, whatever. And essentially what I'm going to do is take each of the PowerPoint slides, turn them into an image. I'm going to take the transcript using the YouTube transcript API, match that up to the timing that we have on the slides, and then basically run through the slides, pass the transcript to ChatGPT so that it will summarize it in bullet points, read that out using 11 Labs, so my same voice again, using my voice, and then make it just much more professional. And then probably put a lot more content at the very start, because to get people hooked on what we're trying to do, and also have a couple of call to actions, which I don't really do when I'm doing the meetups. Like I said, the YouTube audience is a lot less forgiving than the actual meetup, so I'm hoping that will get us lots more views. Okay. But I did want to show you just how easy it is to use this. So I'm going to stop presenting now and see if anybody's got any questions.
Yeah, I have a question. I kind of miss what you were using Postman for.
OAuth is a pain. Okay, so in order to get OAuth working, I have to get it working at its most basic. And at its most basic, it's basically API calls with headers. So I didn't know. So when ChatGPT gave me the code, it didn't really explain what all the environment variables were. So I used Postman to figure out what the different environment variables were. So I knew if I could get it working in Postman, I could do whatever I needed to do to hack the code generated by ChatGPT to get it to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you used it as a development playground.
Exactly.
To figure it out, but once you figured it out, you didn't use it anymore.
No, I didn't use it anymore. I just used it to give myself confidence to know that if I was passing in the authorization code in the right place, I had my variables set correctly so that it would give me an access token. And once I had the access token, I knew I was gold.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Brian. Okay. I will post this video and the slides tomorrow, so that if you want to play with anything, but it's just go to my GitHub, github.com/GodfreyNolan, and it's called Talk to CRM if you want to play with it now. And see you all next month. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. That was good. Thank you, Godfrey.